Good morning.
So, on the great pudding issue, have you changed your mind?
Well, actually, you said it, Christmas pudding. I do love.
That's because you're old.
Pudding. I beg your pardon.
No, it's because you're old. Because young people don't like Christmas pudding.
Why not?
I don't think they do. But I think as you get older, you like Christmas pudding.
This is a revelation.
Don't you think?
I'll be turning to the Brussels sprouts next. I don't eat those yet, but...
I love Brussels sprouts. But you need little ones. And don't cook them for too long because they have terrible side effects.
Right. Oh, noted. noted.
Yeah.
You're the doctor.
Well, yeah. So, no, I love Brussels sprouts, Christmas pudding, any Christmas cake. You see, I hated that as a child.
No, I love Christmas cake.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
You can
I'm
see. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Well, I've just come back from the States, you know.
Well, that's right. So you've just come back from the States. Of course, Donald Trump won this. I mean, it was a landslide, wasn't it? I mean, really, however you dice this, and also Kamala Harris couldn't even bring herself to sort of address the nation until much later on. This morning, there's a big story. The US government has brought charges against an Afghan national in connection with this Iranian plot, allegedly, to assassinate Donald Trump before he was elected. Of course, this is Farhad Shakiri, 51, was tasked by Iran, allegedly, to provide a plan to kill Donald Trump. Also, as we know, he faced 2 assassination attempts, but Donald Trump has won, and he is going to be the next US president. What I thought was fascinating, and you were away, there was abject meltdown in this country of left-wing journalists. I mean, total meltdown. And I printed this earlier in the week. This is The Guardian. And the headline is how The Guardian will stand up to 4 more years of Donald Trump. We've witnessed an extraordinary, devastating moment, they say, in the history of the United States. We're going to hold Trump to account. He is a risk to a free press in the United States and beyond. I mean, it's a bit over the top.
Just slightly. Just slightly, but it's The Guardian for you. But I think, look, you're absolutely right. This is where I think the public get annoyed because everyone is entitled to a view, obviously that goes without saying, but when you have people, and it's political commentators, and I dare I say it, it tends to be people on the left that just are unable at any given point to be able to see a rationale or find any kind of positive to say about someone that just doesn't have their political beliefs. And look, you know, The Guardian and the left-wing press and, you know, mainstream media, you know, all had this meltdown, as you say. Even, you know, America, I was watching CNN and you know, they were very pro-democratic. And it was just, how can you, despite all the bluster and the personality of Donald Trump, the idea that you are still unable just to see why so many people have voted for him shows, actually, it's rather more that kind of the media that's out of touch, not the people that voted for him.
And very well said. It's extraordinary, their editorial, but also, this made me giggle as well, The Guardian now, because obviously they're also upset, they're now offering counselling to their staff. I'm not kidding. They vowed to support its workforce after the upsetting US election victory. So this is Catherine Viner, who is the editor of The Guardian. She emailed all the staff at The Guardian and she said this has exposed alarming fault lines on many fronts. She says if you want to talk about it, your manager, members of the leadership team are available, the people team are available. This election was an extraordinary, devastating moment in the history of the United States. I mean, what?
Yes, yeah. And all I would say to that is, look, you know, yes, newspapers in this country can take a particular view. They're more sort of, you know, able to than broadcasters, for example. But, you know, people still expect in this country journalists to be journalists, report the facts, report what is actually happening on the ground. I'm afraid to say, I know we attack the journal, or never buy it and wouldn't, but for readers that do buy The Guardian, that do want a varied opinion, maybe, because they're quite moderate and mainstream. You know, to the readership of The Guardian, just hearing that, and that is basically an admission that The Guardian newspaper is basically a propaganda sort of left-wing pamphlet for any kind of left of politics, left of centre politics. So the idea that you're buying The Guardian thinking that you're going to get some sort of, you know, first-rate piece of journalism, you're clearly not. So I would, you know, I think that's just an admission there that people will now stop buying it for those that small portion of people that were buying it anyway.
In the US, by the way, some colleges have given students time off.
Oh,
seriously. Because they've also given them extension on deadlines, art therapy classes, also a therapy duck. Because Trump won. This is right. So this is the University of Oregon. They said to students they want to promote well-being and lessen anxiety during the election week because the election is so upsetting. They're bringing Quacktavius, the therapy duck, to campus. I mean, shouldn't students be concentrating on their work and doing exams?
Well, it's quackers, isn't it?
Oh, well done, well done. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Georgetown University, they have also brought in some tools for their students. They've said that students now can play with Lego, colouring books. They can have milk and cookies in self-care suites following the result. The University of Michigan is holding an art therapy and post-election processing event. Also, stores in the US closed in collective grief. The Collective, writing on its Instagram page, it was closing for collective grief. What is going on?
Well, it becomes, I think, incredibly unhealthy if you start to... Look, he's not even done anything yet. You know, he's not in office yet. So if you start to build up this big sort of, you know, melodramatic sort of breakdown society, they think this is all going to be a disaster, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Well, I think you just need to, go and have some milk and cookies if that's what you want to do.
And stroke the duck.
And stroke the duck. But maybe in your own time, in your own privacy, and just collect your thoughts and wait and see what happens, and then come in with a view. Or if you don't like what Donald Trump does, you don't have to like what Donald Trump does, but do it, you know, be rational about it.
I can tell you this because she's not watching because she's an American, she'll be asleep, but a friend of mine had to go to bed for 3 days because she couldn't cope with Trump's last win. So goodness knows what. She's a very bright woman as well. I just want to... You mentioned CNN there. One clip racking up thousands of views online is CNN. They're looking at an election map showing counties comparing Harris to Biden, and they switch through the map. The entire USA goes grey, showing that actually Harris didn't outperform Biden in any single county. And then Jake Tapper, who was basically the presenter there, exclaims, "Holy smokes, literally nothing? Not one county." So had an abject meltdown on there. Emily Maitlis on Channel 4, I don't know if you read this as well, she had an absolute starstruck as well and then disappeared from screen.
Yes, yeah, and again, I just think, you know, if you want to be a journalist in this country, you know, yes, of course, everyone's got views and opinions, but report if you're unable as a journalist in the UK. You know, we're not in America, it's none of our business, effectively. I mean, it doesn't have implications across the world, but if you cannot understand why people in their droves have voted for Donald Trump, then I'm afraid you'll probably need to have a question over your own career.
Well, the thing is, it's really naughty, but I chuckled through all of these stories when I was reading it. It was rather delicious. MSNBC also, when they were doing their election coverage, they had the former White House Communications Director, Nicole Wallace, saying the contest was a dead heat, even though Trump had got already to 230. And then Tom Bradbury, here in the UK, he claimed Brits cannot believe the world's most important democracy has elected a fascist. I mean, that speaks volumes, and also it speaks to your point about report the news.
Yes, yes, exactly.
I've got a map, I don't know if we've got it, of the United States, which I want to show you now, because this is just a brilliant thing. This is the map of the United States showing what Trump won. And there's a great comment, and it says, "Trump, better coverage than Verizon."
Yes, I saw Elon Musk, I think, tweeted this morning. It must be doing the rounds, but yeah, I mean, just look at that.
Swathes of red. I mean, it's literally a red map, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. And so if you're, you know, if you've taken a drumming in the election, which I know, you know, as a Tory, you know, it happens occasionally, you've got to be able to then look at where the failures were. You know, the Democrats were clearly, and the left-wing politicians were believing their own rhetoric, thinking that polls were closer. They're not, and not understanding what matters to people on the ground. And it's always the people, the electorate are never wrong. They will always get it right.
So you also have chosen some stories, and this is one of the front pages this morning as well. I can't remember. Was it The Sun? Anyway, you have chosen this. Yes, it's The Sun, about Remembrance Day, which obviously is tomorrow, not to be confused with Armistice Day, which someone just corrected me on. Sorry, it was early when I said that. And beefed up security.
Yes. Isn't it awful when, you know, the whole point of remembrance is to honour those that have lost their life, who fought in incredibly, you know, challenging, difficult, you know, something that the world has never seen since, to give us the freedoms that we enjoy today. It is a moment of reflection and appreciation of all of that sacrifice for people that lost their lives, families that were torn apart, families that may never have seen each other again until very later in life in some instances. And the very idea that you've got effectively these crackpot hijackers who feel the need to come down on Remembrance Sunday to disrupt or to protest or to hijack it in a sense that to use it for their own cause, whether you're pro-Palestinian and trying to highlight a cause out there, nothing to do with pro-Palestinian at the minute. You know, this is about those soldiers and those families, and as a nation, as a point in history of where we are today, as a leader in the free world, as the UK is, whether you're on the left wing, whether it's pro-Palestinian, or whether you're on the far right. Tomorrow is not the day to be coming to London, to the Cenotaph, to basically purport your own claims. Same with anybody at a Just Stop Oil if they fancy having a go. Don't bother. And I hope that the police, as is reported, said that they'll be incredibly robust. And I hope they are. And I think that's what the nation wants. That's what the nation deserves. But tomorrow is not the day for protests of any kind.
I totally agree with you. Also, Trump being in power, we'll talk more about this later on, but Nigel Farage is now in quite an interesting position. Obviously, he is with Trump, or was with Trump. He knows Trump very well. He was at Mar-a-Lago. I know that because I spoke to someone he was with in Mar-a-Lago on the night of the election. Now, Nigel Farage has also said to Labour, look, I will put party politics aside and I will actually work with you and broker stuff because Trump is going to go down harder on the EU. There is a big article in the Telegraph this morning saying that actually the UK may be spared the worst of that. But now, defence spending, that's another story you've chosen because Trump is furious with Europe for not spending enough money on defence.
And again, it goes back to just the idea of, people will ask, well, name one thing that was good about Donald Trump in his first term. Why on earth would people vote for him again? Well, I'll tell you why. Because, when it came to foreign affairs in particular, if you can't look at what's happening in America, if you don't like the domestic politics, if you don't like what he stands for, look at what he did on the international stage. And I think it is perfectly acceptable. Take Donald Trump away from you put his name to one side. But if you are a leader of a country, say the President of the United States, it is not unreasonable to tell your European counterparts, hold on, we're part of this national sort of this global alliance with NATO, where we've all chipped in our hard-working taxpayers' money to protect us all, to have this security set up. And I'm funding for basically the rest of the world. Can you, as my friend, as my partner, as a European ally, whether it's the UK, whether it's Germany, can you just stamp up a bit more cash? Because I think there's a bit of an imbalance here. There's nothing wrong with saying that. And he did that in his own way. I mean, I'll grant that. But Europe had to sit up and think, my gosh, if he withdraws funding, we're all going to be up the creek without a paddle, to put it politely. And European leaders moved. And so, I mean, it's too late, I think, for the UK now to be talking about 2.5%. People in Conservative parties wanted up to 3%.
Ben Wallace wanted it at 3%.
But Trump was absolutely right to get his allied partners in NATO to pay more.
I agree. Just before we go to the break, let's just look at this story, can we, on a light... Well, I suppose it's a lighter note. I read this morning and I did giggle. This is about a surgeon who said something inappropriate. Tell us the story.
Yes, well, I similarly saw the headline and I did have a little giggle. There is slightly more to it than that. When it then becomes...
That's why I took it out of my head-to-head later.
Yes. It's, look... this is a surgeon who, at the age of 60, he's lost his job as chief of surgery at NHS hospital, found guilty of professional misconduct by when a colleague of his said that she had 6 kids. He sort of said, well, sounds like you're a bit of a goer, or do you not have a television, or you must get some new hobbies.
Which I can imagine anyone saying.
Which I can too, which I think is funny.
That is funny.
And I do think that people just, you can sort of, and plus, by the way, when you're a surgeon, I mean, you'll know more than me, but, when you're in a high-powered job that carries no doubt huge amounts of stress to carry out operations that he has to. The idea that if this is his way of just having a little bit of light relief, a little bit of a... what? I'll forgive him for it, because you can understand that sometimes you see... I mean, he did go on to say a few other things, which...
this is where he crossed the line.
He did, and I'm assuming I can read out because it's in the papers, and it's a quote. But there was during a discussion... the story says that he noticed that the woman in particular wasn't wearing any tights, and he said to her, "Oh, you've got your legs out. That reminds me of a T-shirt I once owned. It said, 'Nice legs. What time do they open?'" Now that is obviously highly inappropriate, and unless they have a relationship where they're actually good friends and you have that kind of chatter amongst yourselves. But clearly they didn't, because she reported.
But you see, I misread that again this morning, and the key point here is he doesn't say. I've got to be careful what I say. He doesn't say that sentence, nice legs, what time do they open? He said, I had a T-shirt.
Yes, a
that
T-shirt
said
that
that,
says it. Yes.
So then, we have a lot of banter here throughout the day in the office and stuff, and it sometimes. I think older people, I'm just saying about myself, maybe, it's about intent, isn't it? Because sometimes things I say, younger members of staff like, it's a bit racy.
Yes,
but that's how we were brought up.
Yes. But
Phil's yelling a bit.
Yes.
I mean, but that's how we were brought up. You say maybe saucier things.
Yes, and I don't mind a little double entendre.
I love a double entendre, yeah.
But I think there comes obviously you can't go around saying things that are inappropriate or offensive, but we also have to have a conversation with, if that was offensive to her, or if she was uncomfortable, she should be able to say, or you would hope, whether it's a man or a woman, to be able to snap back and say, hold on, I think that's a bit inappropriate, or that's a bit far. And of course, the surgeon probably thought, oh right, gosh, maybe I need to think before I speak. If he hadn't before, the idea that she might not have said anything, but then has complained to NHS senior bosses. This guy's now had to go through a tribunal. He's lost his job. Okay, if it's inappropriate, it's inappropriate. You can't defend that. But I do then sort of think to myself, if it's just a sort of comment that could have been resolved in another way by conversation, what we've actually ended up with is a surgeon doing a critical, in a critical position, has lost his job. We've got now one less surgeon carrying out operations that many people in this country may or may not need. So, you can't justify bad behaviour or unprofessional conduct in the office, but I think sometimes and some people are quite quick to sort of reach for the HR, the direct line to HR, rather than be able to resolve it themselves.
Phil's got his hotline open to HR as we speak.
In fact, I think I can see
he's dialing
down the corridor now.
They're not in at the weekend.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, yeah.